Resurrected is about a mental institution in Israel in 1960, in the middle of the Negev desert near the Dead Sea, if you know it. And the mental institution is exclusively for concentration camp survivors. The story follows me as a patient there. It seems that I've been in the concentration camps. I was a successful entertainer in Berlin, we find out, and I have a lovely wife and 2 daughters, and we wind up at the extermination camp, and the commandant, played by the great Willem Dafoe, says to me, "Oh, the funniest man in all of Germany. He knows me." He says, "Do a trick and make us laugh. In fact, you should have seen this guy. He could impersonate any animal." Back when he was still working. Tell you what, Adam, imitate my dog. Be a German Shepherd like my German Shepherd here, Rex. And it's very humiliating for me, but I do it in order to leverage the safety of my family, you know. And he says, "Oh, that's very funny. I'll tell you what, for the rest of the time that you're here, that's what you'll do for my entertainment and comfort. You'll be a dog. You'll 24 hours a day, you'll live with my dog and act like a dog and be a dog." And in order to, like I say, leverage the safety of my family, I do it. I say, "How about my family?" He says, "Well, we'll talk about that later." It turns out until we get liberated, until the war is lost by Germany and I'm released, it's a year and a half later. But I've lost I haven't been successful in saving my family. Both my girls and my wife are dead. And I'm heartbroken and soul crushed, and I lose my mind. And I wind up 15 years later, in 1960, at this mental institution, one way or another, in Israel. And one of the first things I say when I get there is, you can't have any dogs around. I have a horrible association with dogs. They say, "Oh, okay." And by, one day, lo and behold, I hear a dog barking, and it turns out to be not only a dog, but a 12-year-old boy who thinks he's a dog, can only act like a dog, is on all fours, barks, doesn't speak. And that, even more than a dog, as you can imagine, brings up the most horrible kind of memories for me. And the rest of the movie, and the center of the movie, is really my love story, I suppose you could say, with this boy. No one can help him, me, I'm dying slowly. But we reach out to each other, and in a miraculous and kind of mystical way, heal each other. And that's the movie. Well, delicate, yeah, you say the topic was delicate, yeah. Well, as we know, it's taken from real events, and luckily I had a year to prepare for it, It doesn't happen that way. It's never happened that way on any job that I've had. But for one reason or another, I had a year before we actually had to do the movie, and I worked for that year. I immersed myself really in preparation for the part. And I came here and spent a month here and went over the script and looked at places that my character might have lived and learned the history as much as I could of it. Went to a concentration camp in Poland called Majdanek. It's outside Lublin. And went to Israel for the first time. I'd never been to Israel before. And visited with survivors of concentration camps in the war in Israel and here in Europe, right here in this hotel, in fact. And people were very, very generous to me and told me their stories, and delicate, profoundly disturbing, inspiring stories that they were. And in America, in Los Angeles, I talked to many survivors. And yeah, it was delicate. I felt responsible to do a good job, and depict it honestly and as, vividly as had happened, even though I could never really experience anything like that actually. But and then the story itself, written by Yoram Kaniuk, brilliant Israeli author, it had been published in the early 70s, is a brilliant piece of writing. So I also felt delicately responsible to be worthy of that. And then Noah Stolman wrote a beautiful adaptation as a screenplay, and to work with the other actors was a real responsibility, and Paul Schrader. I'll go into that more, but yeah, it was a very tricky thing. That was one of the great life-changing experiences. Elements of the experience was the people I worked with. Paul Schrader, a great teacher, masterful director. He was spectacular, and the whole team. There were, it was produced by Werner Versing and Ulf Israel, German producers, and Ehud Bleiberg, a great Israeli producer, for whom it had been a passionate project for 20 years, and he'd spent his life's blood and put his heart and soul into making this happen. But the whole team was there. We shot it mainly in Romania and then in Israel a little bit. Many Romanian people, spectacular, and the whole German team. The Sebastian Edschmidt was the great cinematographer, German cinematographer. Alexander Manasse was the production designer. Did a beautiful, fantastic job. And Juliana Köhler was in it, a great German actress, and Joachim Kroll, fantastic, and Moritz Bleibtreu, and they were just spectacular. They couldn't have been better, and I couldn't have been luckier to work with them. And then there were Israeli actors, and Sir Derek Jacobi is in it, a brilliant British actor. So it was a very mixed and wonderful group of people. Well, to identify with Adam Stein, the character, it's difficult. I can't, like I said before, you can't imagine a story, someone's experience that has gone through more horrific, dramatic, traumatic, worse things than that. I've had a lucky life. Things have been pleasant for me, in many ways. So I'll never know what it's like to experience that. But there were things in the character that I felt suited to. He's an actor and has some challenges and problems early on, and he's a loving family man, has loving romantic relationships. And then, I think a lot of people can relate to a certain way that I saw this character. It's about a person who is like a lot of us, I guess, maybe we haven't been through the most horrific and traumatic variations of it, but people, and I myself have had what we could call challenges or disorders or addictions of one kind or another. And, sometimes to get better entirely, to reach ideal, optimum health and well-being, it's sometimes more painful and difficult than staying in a kind of a comfortable zone of less than wellness, and so that's what the character goes through. It's a very dramatic variation of it, like I say, but it's a struggle for this character, and I think a lot of people know about this to really take the leap of improvement that he goes through, Well, I tell you, I've never I think it's the most challenging part I've ever had. I've been lucky. I've had a lot of interesting parts, but it's, it was very demanding. I don't think there's been as emotionally demanding a part as this, and based on real events as it was, of such an important nature, that was as challenging as I've ever had, and the character itself has so many contradictions and is so unexpected and surprising, has many facets, many elements. I have to play the violin. I played the violin for a year in preparation for it, to be able to fake being a violinist, and it was very challenging. It was the most the difficult part I think I've had. Yeah. Is film a medium that helps break down boundaries? Well, it can be. I think my life has changed from being involved in film. My dad was a doctor. If I was a doctor, I suppose. If I was anything but an actor, which isn't easy for me all the time, and kind of causes me to break down my own boundaries, so to speak, and get out of my safety and comfort zone, do things that are kind of scary for me. It causes me to, I suppose one would say, connect with my elements of myself more, as acting requires you to do, as people know, and be involved with people. Acting, unlike writing or painting, my sister's a painter, it involves other people, so it certainly breaks down barriers, social, interpersonal barriers that might have, been there otherwise. So in me, the experiencer, yes, and then the intention is, in all sorts of stories, to tell stories that break down people's psychological, emotional barriers, open them up. It's stories are meant to be told and acted out, and you have to open up to tell them, and they're meant to open the hearts, minds, and thinking of and every other aspect of the personality of the receiver. That's what it's meant to do. And a movie like this, about forgiveness, understanding, inspiration in the face of horrible loss, as we all go through in one way or another, yes, that's meant to be ennobling, comforting, provocative, disturbing, stimulating, and finally a kind of a barrier destroyer. Mm-hmm.